We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. Jennifer Whitmore's voice cut through the bright marble lobby, cold and sharp. The clicking of keyboards stopped. The air froze. Brianna Mercer, a black woman standing at the counter, lifted her chin slightly. Her voice was calm, yet carried a quiet weight.
And you think you have that right with me?
And you think you have that right with me? A few customers turned to look,
Policy
curiosity flickering in their eyes.
Ma'am.
Jennifer crossed her arms, a smug smile curling on her lips. Policy is policy, ma'am. Brianna said nothing. She placed a neat folder on the counter, her movements slow but deliberate. Her tone dropped, firm and low. Remember this face. By tomorrow morning, things will be different. Jennifer shrugged, her expression dripping with disdain. Above them, a security camera blinked red, recording everything. No one in the lobby knew that Brianna Mercer's words marked the beginning of a storm that would bring the entire bank to its knees. Have you ever wondered what would happen if the people who look down on others for their color, their clothes, or their status suddenly realized the person they just humiliated was the one who held their future, and that every second of their cruelty was being quietly recorded? Brianna stepped into the marble lobby at 9:30, peak hours, when the bank hummed with activity. She joined the line behind a young white couple being greeted with warm smiles from the teller stations. The woman behind the counter laughed at something the husband said, her body language open and welcoming. When they finished, she waved cheerfully as they walked away. Brianna moved forward. The same teller, her nameplate read Sarah Thompson, employee code ST2847 visible on her lanyard, glanced up. The smile vanished. Her eyes traveled from Brianna's canvas bag to her cardigan, lingering just long enough to make an assessment. What do you need? Sarah's voice had gone flat, the warmth completely drained. Good morning. I'd like to open a business account, please. Brianna kept her tone polite, professional. She'd rehearsed this moment, knew exactly how to present herself as someone without leverage. Sarah's eyebrows rose slightly. A business account? She said it like Brianna had asked for something unreasonable. Do you understand the requirements for business banking at Ashford Sterling? Brianna felt the shift in the air, the subtle recalibration happening behind Sarah's eyes. She'd watched this happen to others, read about it in diversity reports, seen the statistics, but experiencing it, feeling the weight of that dismissive gaze, was different. I believe so. I have all my documentation prepared. Sarah took the folder Brianna offered, flipping through the pages with theatrical slowness. Birth certificate, business license, tax returns, everything meticulously organized. Sarah's lips pressed into a thin line. We'll need additional verification documents, 5 different forms of 5. Brianna kept her voice level. Behind her, she could hear another teller processing a business account for a white customer. No additional forms, no interrogation, just a smooth, practiced welcome. Special compliance protocols, Sarah said, not meeting her eyes. For certain types of applications, you'll need to provide 5 years of banking history, detailed income statements, and... She paused, her voice dropping to something that almost sounded apologetic but wasn't. We'll need to understand the nature of your business, to ensure it aligns with our institutional standards. Brianna nodded slowly, watching Sarah's hands. The teller was already filling out a form, checking boxes that Brianna recognized from the compliance manual she herself had approved 2 years ago. Boxes that should only be checked for high-risk international transactions, not for a straightforward business account from a U.S. citizen. What kind of business did you say this was? Sarah asked, though Brianna hadn't said anything yet. Consulting, business strategy, and investment advisory. Sarah's expression shifted again, a flicker of something that might have been disbelief. And you're looking to bank with us because I own this building, Brianna thought. Because I sign your paychecks. Because I've spent 3 years trying to build something better than this. But she said none of that. Instead, I've heard excellent things about your business services. I was hoping to establish a relationship here. I see. Sarah set the papers down, her fingers drumming against the counter. You know, maybe you'd be more comfortable at one of our partner branches. We serve a very specific clientele here, and the requirements can be demanding for someone like you. Someone like you. The words hung in the air between them, polite on the surface but heavy with meaning. Brianna felt her jaw tighten, forced herself to breathe. She glanced around the lobby. 3 other customers had joined the line behind her, all white, all watching this interaction with varying degrees of interest. One woman met Brianna's eyes, then quickly looked away. In the corner of the lobby, Brianna spotted what she was looking for, the security camera mounted at an angle that would capture this entire exchange. She made a mental note of its position. Northeast corner, approximately 12 feet high, red recording light steady and bright. I'd prefer to open the account here, Brianna said quietly, if that's possible. Sarah sighed, a sound of profound inconvenience. I'll need to speak with my manager. This isn't a standard situation. She stood without waiting for Brianna's response and disappeared through a door marked Staff Only. Brianna remained at the counter, hyper-aware of every detail. The marble was cold beneath her hands. Behind her, someone coughed impatiently. To her left, another teller was laughing with a customer, processing their transaction in under 5 minutes. Sarah had been gone for 7 minutes, then 10, then 15. This wasn't procedure. This was something else entirely, something systematic and deliberate. Brianna pulled out her phone, pretending to check messages while actually opening her voice memo app. She needed evidence, not just for herself, but for every person who'd stood here before her, experiencing this same calculated dismissal. When Sarah finally returned, she wasn't alone. Derek Morrison emerged from the back office with the posture of a man interrupted during something more important. He was in his late 40s, silver-haired, with the kind of casual authority that came from 15 years in the same position. He didn't offer his hand, didn't invite Brianna to sit in one of the plush chairs reserved for premium clients. He simply stood on the other side of Sarah's counter, arms crossed, and asked, "What's the problem?" Not, "How can I help you?" Not, "Welcome to Ashford Sterling." Just, "What's the problem?" Brianna kept her expression neutral. "Good morning. I'm hoping to open a business account. I have $250,000 in initial capital to deposit, and I'd like to establish a banking relationship here." Derek's eyes narrowed. For a moment, he said nothing, just stared at her like she'd announced she was depositing Monopoly money. Then he laughed, a short, sharp sound without humor. $250,000? From where exactly? The question landed like a slap. Not wonderful, let me help you with that. Not, let's discuss our business services. Just immediate suspicion, immediate doubt. Brianna had prepared for this, but preparation didn't make it easier to swallow. From my consulting business, she said evenly, I have financial statements, tax returns, and documentation of all income sources, everything you'd need to verify. Derek picked up the papers Sarah had left on the counter, scanning them with an expression that suggested he was looking for forgery. His lips moved silently as he read, then he set them down with exaggerated care. Consulting. Right. He drew out the word, loading it with skepticism. And this income, you're going to need to explain the source, in detail. We have very strict anti-money laundering protocols here. Brianna felt something cold settle in her chest. AML protocols. She'd written those protocols. She knew exactly when they applied and when they didn't. A legitimate business account from a U.S. citizen with documented income didn't trigger AML reviews. Not unless someone decided it should. I understand your need for due diligence, she said carefully. I'm happy to provide whatever documentation you require. What specifically do you need? Derek didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked around the counter, invading her space in a way that felt deliberate, and studied her more closely. We'll need 5 years of complete banking history. Every transaction over $1,000 explained and sourced. 3 professional references, proof of business address, and... He paused, his voice dropping to something almost conversational. We'll need to understand exactly how someone in your situation came into this kind of capital. For risk assessment purposes, you understand. Someone in your situation. The euphemism was paper thin. Behind them, Brianna heard the whisper of movement. Other customers straining to listen, bank employees glancing over with poorly concealed interest. Derek had made sure his voice carried just enough. This wasn't a private conversation. It was a performance, a demonstration of who belonged here and who didn't. My situation? Brianna kept her tone light, curious, giving him room to clarify or retreat. He didn't take the exit. We serve a very particular client base at this branch, high net worth individuals, established businesses. I'm sure you can appreciate that we need to be selective. It's not personal. It's about maintaining standards. Standards. There it was. Coded language, polished and professional, but transparent if you knew how to listen. Brianna pulled out her phone, ostensibly to check the time, but actually pressing record on her voice memo app. Her hands were steady, but inside, a different kind of calculation was happening. She was mapping the system now, seeing its shape. I have all the documentation you've requested, she said. Would you like me to provide it now, or... Fill these out first. Derek produced 3 separate application packets from behind the counter, each one thick with redundant questions. Standard procedure for new business accounts, though I have to say... He glanced at Sarah, who nodded in silent agreement. Most clients find our requirements quite demanding. You might want to consider whether this is the right fit. It wasn't advice. It was a warning, or maybe a dare. Brianna took the packets, feeling their weight. 70, maybe 80 pages of forms. Questions that repeated, that circled back, that were designed to exhaust and discourage. She'd seen these forms before, had questioned why they existed when the standard application was 12 pages. Now she understood. These weren't for everyone. They were for specific people. People like her. As Derek turned to leave, Brianna heard him say something to Sarah. Too quiet for most people to catch, but Brianna had excellent hearing. Flag the account, security review, possible laundering risk. He was already building a file on her, already creating a paper trail that would justify whatever decision he'd already made. Brianna sat down in the waiting area, opened her laptop, and began typing. Not the bank forms. An encrypted message to her legal team, her head of compliance, her contact at the FBI who'd been quietly investigating financial institutions for civil rights violations. Confirmed. Worse than reported. Activate tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Need full team. She hit send and looked up at the security camera in the northeast corner. Its red light blinked steadily, recording everything. Good. Let it record. Tomorrow, when they pulled this footage, they'd see exactly what happened here. They'd see how the system worked when it thought no one was watching. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Brianna filled out forms in mechanical silence, watching the clock on the wall tick forward while other customers came and went. A white man in jeans and a polo shirt walked up to a different teller, mentioned he wanted to open a business account and was processed in 12 minutes flat. No extra forms, no manager consultation, just efficiency and smiles. When Derek finally returned, he brought reinforcements. The woman beside him wore a charcoal suit that probably cost $3,000, her blonde hair pulled back in a style that suggested she'd never had to prove herself to anyone. Jennifer Whitmore, Regional Director. Brianna knew her name from the organizational chart, knew she'd been with Ashford and Sterling for 16 years, climbing steadily through positions that rewarded a certain kind of persistence. Jennifer's eyes swept over Brianna with the clinical detachment of someone appraising furniture. Not hostile exactly, just utterly devoid of warmth. "I understand you'd like to open an account with us. 250,000, Derek said. Her tone made it sound absurd, like Brianna had claimed to own a yacht. "That's correct," Brianna replied. "Interesting." Jennifer took the forms Brianna had filled out, scanning them with theatrical thoroughness. "And your occupation is listed as consultant, business strategy." She looked up, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "What kind of consulting exactly? Are you, let me guess, a model? Singer? Athlete, perhaps?" The assumptions landed with practiced precision. The only ways, apparently, that a black woman could accumulate wealth: entertainment, sports, physical gifts rather than intellectual ones. Brianna had heard these assumptions before, had watched them play out in boardrooms and conferences, but here, in her own bank, directed at her like weapons, it felt different. "Investment advisory and corporate strategy consulting," Brianna said, keeping her voice level. "I work with mid-sized companies on operational efficiency and growth planning." Jennifer's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Doubt, maybe, or irritation that Brianna hadn't fit neatly into the expected category. "That's quite ambitious. And you have formal training in this field? A degree?" "Yes, Harvard Business School, MBA." The silence that followed was heavy, charged. Derek shifted his weight. Sarah, still stationed at her counter, had stopped pretending to work and was watching openly now. Several customers had paused their transactions, sensing drama. Then Jennifer smiled, cold and sharp as January wind. "Well, Harvard accepts a lot of diversity candidates these days, don't they? Admission standards have become quite flexible." The words detonated softly. Their impact felt rather than seen. Brianna's jaw tightened. Around them, the lobby had gone very quiet. This wasn't subtext anymore. This was text, plain and brutal, delivered with the confidence of someone who believed there would be no consequences. "I earned my degree," Brianna said quietly, "just like everyone else who graduates from HBS." "I'm sure you did." Jennifer's tone suggested the opposite. She set down the papers, her movements deliberate, theatrical. "But here's the thing, miss." She glanced at the form. "Mercer. Ashford Sterling has a reputation to protect. We're not just any bank. We serve a very specific clientele, and we have standards, rigorous standards. When someone walks in off the street claiming to have significant capital, we have to ask questions, especially when that person doesn't fit the typical profile of our business banking clients." Typical profile. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. Brianna glanced around the lobby, seeing the architecture of exclusion clearly now. The marble floors that were meant to intimidate, the minimalist decor that whispered "not for you." The staff who moved through space with the assumption that certain people belonged and certain people were problems to be managed. She'd built her career navigating these spaces, but she'd never stood in one quite like this, as a deliberate target, stripped of the armor that titles and corner offices provided. Jennifer was still talking, her voice rising just enough to ensure an audience. "We take anti-money laundering very seriously. When someone can't adequately explain their income source, when documentation seems, shall we say, convenient, we have an obligation, not just to our institution, but to federal regulators. I'm sure you understand." "I've provided complete documentation," Brianna said. "Documentation can be manufactured." Jennifer snapped her fingers, and Derek stepped forward with a tablet. "I'm requesting a security review. Standard protocol for high-risk accounts." She looked at Derek. "Make sure someone from our fraud prevention team takes a look at this. Today." High risk. Fraud prevention. The words were being used as weapons now, tools of institutional violence delivered in professional tones. Brianna watched Derek tap notes into the tablet, creating an official record that would follow her, that would be used to justify whatever decision they'd already made. Near the window, Brianna noticed a young woman in a staff uniform, an intern, probably, barely out of college. She was black, her eyes wide and glistening as she watched this unfold. She'd seen this before, Brianna realized. Maybe experienced it herself. The woman's name tag read Maya Rodriguez, and her hands were trembling slightly as she gripped a stack of files. Jennifer's voice cut through Brianna's observation. "I'm going to be frank with you. We have the right to refuse service to anyone we feel doesn't meet our institutional standards. This isn't personal, it's business. We've worked very hard to maintain a certain caliber of clientele, and we're protective of that. Some banks cast a wide net. We don't. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of our competitor institutions. Have you tried Chase? They're often more accommodating." The dismissal was complete now, wrapped in corporate language but unmistakable. Brianna felt the weight of 100 similar moments. Boardrooms where she'd been underestimated, meetings where she'd had to prove herself twice as hard for half the recognition, negotiations where her authority was questioned before she'd even spoken. This was different only in its brazenness, its refusal to even pretend at fairness. "These protocols you're describing," Brianna said slowly, carefully. "Do you apply them to every customer who wants to open a business account?" Jennifer's smile was razor thin. "We apply them to customers who warrant additional scrutiny. That's our professional judgment to make." "Based on what criteria?" "Based on our expertise and experience." Jennifer glanced at her watch. An expensive piece, platinum and diamonds. "Look, I've been doing this for 16 years. I know a problematic account when I see one. And frankly, you're raising red flags. The vague business description, the sudden appearance of significant capital, the inability to provide adequate context. These are textbook money laundering indicators. I've provided tax returns, business licenses, bank statements going back 5 years, documents that we need to verify." Jennifer cut her off, her voice going cold. "Which takes time and resources. Resources we reserve for clients we believe will be mutually beneficial relationships. I'm not saying you're doing anything illegal. I'm saying this doesn't feel like the right fit for either of us." She gestured toward the door, not overtly, but the meaning was clear. Around them, other customers were staring now, some with sympathy, others with the uncomfortable fascination people had for public humiliation. The security guard by the entrance had straightened, one hand resting casually near his radio. Brianna remained seated. She pulled out her phone, not to make a call, but to let them see her checking the time, marking the moment. "These protocols," she said again, her voice carrying now. "Who do they protect exactly?" Jennifer's eyes narrowed. "I don't appreciate the insinuation." "I'm not insinuating anything. I'm asking a direct question. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like these extra requirements, these special protocols, only apply to certain people. And I'm wondering if there's a pattern." "We don't discriminate." Jennifer's voice had gone sharp. "If you're suggesting..." "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm observing. And what I observe is that the white customers who came in after me were processed immediately. No extra forms, no fraud reviews, no questions about whether they fit your typical profile, just service. Professional, efficient service." The lobby was completely silent now. Maya, the young intern, had tears streaming down her face, but she wasn't looking away. She was watching like this was something she'd been waiting to see, someone finally saying out loud what everyone knew but nobody acknowledged. Jennifer stood up, her posture rigid. "I'm going to ask you to leave. If you refuse, I'll have security escort you out. We reserve the right to decline service to anyone, for any reason, and you are making a scene that's disrupting our other customers." Brianna didn't move. "I'd like to file a formal complaint." You're welcome to do that through our website. Now, please, I'd like to speak to someone from your compliance department. And I'd like copies of the policies you've cited. The ones about high-risk accounts and typical profiles. Jennifer's face had gone pale, 2 spots of color high on her cheeks. Derek moved closer, and the security guard was walking toward them now, slow and deliberate. The trap was closing, exactly as they'd designed it. Make the victim uncomfortable enough that they either left voluntarily or created a scene that justified their removal. Brianna stood, gathering her papers with deliberate calm. She looked at Jennifer, then at Derek, then at Sarah behind her counter. She looked at Maya, whose jaw was set in something that might have been determination. And finally, she looked up at the security camera in the northeast corner, its red light blinking steadily. "I'll leave," she said quietly. "But I want you to know something. These protocols you're so proud of, these standards, they're not protecting your bank. They're protecting a system that was designed to keep certain people out. And that system is about to change." Jennifer laughed, a sound of pure contempt. "Is that a threat? It's a promise. I'll be back tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. I strongly suggest you have legal counsel present. Don't bother returning," Jennifer said. "You're not welcome here. And threatening bank employees, that's something we take very seriously. Derek, make sure we document this interaction, all of it." Brianna walked toward the exit, her steps measured, her head high. As she passed Maya, the young woman mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." The morning air hit Brianna's face like cold water. She walked half a block before stopping in an alcove, pulling out her phone. Her hands were shaking now, not from fear, but from fury, from the accumulated weight of holding herself together under that kind of assault. She typed a message with precise controlled strikes of her thumbs. "Full activation. FBI Legal Board of Directors Audit Team. Tomorrow 8 a.m. Complete institutional sweep. I have everything we need." She hit send and leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. Tomorrow, Jennifer Whitmore would learn exactly who she'd been so eager to dismiss. Tomorrow, Derek Morrison would understand what standards actually meant. Tomorrow, the whole rotten structure would come down. But tonight, Brianna just needed to breathe. Brianna didn't leave the building. Instead, she moved to the waiting area near the entrance, opened her laptop, and sat down. If they wanted her gone, they'd have to make it official. Make it loud. Make it something the cameras would capture in perfect clarity. 10 minutes passed before Derek appeared, his expression caught between annoyance and disbelief. "You're still here?" "I'm waiting to speak with someone from your compliance department," Brianna said without looking up from her screen. "I believe I have the right to file a formal complaint about the service I received." Derek's jaw tightened. "The transaction is complete. You chose not to proceed. There's nothing to complain about." "I didn't choose anything. I was told I wasn't welcome." "That's not—" Derek stopped, recalibrating. "Look, if you're unhappy with our decision, you can submit feedback through our website, but you can't just camp out in our lobby. This is a place of business." Brianna finally looked up, her expression perfectly neutral. "I understand. I'm conducting business. I'm exercising my right as a potential customer to speak with someone about discriminatory practices." The word hung between them like a detonation. Derek's face flushed. "We don't discriminate. What happened here was standard protocol. Then I'd like documentation of that protocol, in writing, showing how these standard procedures are applied equally to all customers regardless of race." Derek pulled out his phone, typing quickly. Within moments, footsteps approached. William Carter, the branch compliance director, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and the harried expression of someone perpetually managing problems he didn't create. "I understand there's been a misunderstanding," William said, his voice carefully modulated to sound reasonable. He didn't extend his hand. "But I've reviewed the interaction, and our staff followed appropriate procedures. You're certainly welcome to submit a formal complaint. But I can tell you right now, You're not going to find any violations. Our people did their jobs. Their jobs? Brianna kept her voice level, but she was aware of the growing audience. Customers pausing mid-transaction, employees watching from their stations. Their job is to assume every black woman with capital must be a criminal? To require documentation from me that white customers aren't asked for? That's the job? William's expression hardened. You're mischaracterizing what happened. We have robust anti-money laundering protocols that apply to all customers who meet certain risk factors. What risk factors? Be specific. I'm not going to get into the technical details of our compliance framework with someone who isn't even a customer. William straightened his tie. But I can assure you race plays no role in our decision-making process. If you felt unwelcome, I'm sorry, but sometimes our standards simply don't align with every applicant's expectations. Jennifer had materialized beside William, and her presence seemed to embolden him. She crossed her arms, her voice carrying across the lobby. This is exactly what I was talking about. You come in here, make baseless accusations, disrupt our business, and then claim discrimination when we follow our policies. It's frankly insulting to the work we do here. A white man in a business suit, waiting for his turn at a teller window, spoke up. She's been sitting there for 20 minutes. Can someone just handle this? Some of us have actual appointments. His tone, casual dismissal mixed with irritation, was like gasoline on embers. Other customers murmured in agreement. Brianna was becoming the problem, the disruption, the person making everyone uncomfortable, exactly as designed. But then a voice cut through, young, trembling, but clear. That's not what happened. Everyone turned. Maya Rodriguez had stepped forward from her position near the copy machine, her face pale but determined. I was here. I saw the whole thing. And it wasn't fair, the way she was treated. I've seen it before. We do treat people differently. Black customers, Latino customers. We do. Jennifer's eyes went ice cold. Maya, you're an intern. You don't understand the complexities of compliance review. I suggest you return to your workstation before you say something you'll regret. I understand what I saw. Maya's voice shook, but she didn't back down. Last week, a black couple tried to open an account. Same thing, extra forms, manager consultation. They left without opening anything. But the white couple right after them? 5 minutes. Done. That's enough. Jennifer's voice cracked like a whip. You're overstepping, dramatically. If you value your position here, you'll stop talking. Right now. The threat was naked, undisguised. Maya's eyes filled with tears, but she met Brianna's gaze across the lobby. A moment of recognition, of solidarity, of understanding that some things mattered more than job security. A customer pulled out their phone, started recording. Then another. The lobby was transforming into something Jennifer and Derek couldn't control. A public forum, evidence being gathered in real time. Put those away, Derek said, his voice rising. You can't record in here without permission. It's against bank policy. It's a public space, someone said. First Amendment. First, the situation was fracturing, spinning beyond anyone's ability to manage it. William Carter looked panicked now, whispering urgently to Jennifer. The security guard had moved closer, hand on his radio, clearly unsure what he was supposed to do. Brianna stood slowly, gathering her things. She could feel the moment crystallizing. Everything she needed was here. The witnesses, the recordings, the perfect storm of institutional arrogance, meeting public accountability. She walked toward the exit with measured steps, but at the door she turned back. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, I'm coming back. Not as someone asking for permission, not as someone you can dismiss. I'm coming back with people who have the authority to tear this entire operation apart and examine every decision you've made, every policy you've twisted, every person you've turned away. And I strongly suggest you have legal representation ready. Because what happened here today, it's not just wrong, it's criminal. Jennifer stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. You don't know who you're dealing with. I've been in banking for 16 years. I have connections, resources. You think you can threaten me? You think you can walk in here and who are you? Nobody. You're nobody. And tomorrow, when you don't show up, because we both know you won't, I'm going to make sure every bank in this city knows your name. Good luck opening an account anywhere. Brianna smiled, cold and certain. See you at 8. She walked out into the afternoon light, pulled out her phone, and composed a final message. Execute full operation. FBI confirmed. Audit team ready. Board of directors briefed. Legal has warrants. Tomorrow we dismantle it all. The message sent with a soft whoosh. Brianna looked back at the glass tower of Ashford and Sterling, at the people moving behind the windows, unaware that their world was about to collapse. She felt no satisfaction, only a tired sense of purpose. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice, about every Maya Rodriguez who'd been too scared to speak up, every customer who'd walked away thinking the problem was them. Tomorrow, the light would flood in. Tomorrow, the truth would have teeth. 8 o'clock the next morning arrived like a reckoning. Jennifer Whitmore sat in the executive conference room with Derek Morrison and William Carter, reviewing incident reports from yesterday. They'd spent the evening building documentation to justify every decision. She won't show, Derek said. They never do. Even if she does, we're covered, William added. Every protocol is documented. Jennifer nodded, though something nagged at her. That woman's certainty yesterday. The specific threat, 8 o'clock, bring lawyers. At 7:58 a.m., the lobby filled with morning customers. Then, at exactly 8 o'clock, the doors opened. Brianna Mercer walked in wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than Sarah made in a month. Behind her, FBI agents with badges visible, legal teams with document cases, 3 board members including Chairman Richard Ashford and the head of internal audit. The lobby went silent. The bank's general counsel stepped forward with a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Ashford and Sterling's board of directors, I'm announcing an emergency investigation into branch operations. I need to introduce someone leading this effort. He paused. Our Chief Executive Officer, Brianna Mercer. Jennifer's coffee cup slipped from her hand. Derek's face went white. William gripped the table. Sarah's hand covered her mouth. The woman they'd dismissed yesterday, the one Jennifer had insulted and threatened, was their CEO. Brianna took the microphone, her voice calm. Yesterday, I visited this branch as a regular customer to verify concerns brought to my attention. What I experienced exceeded my worst expectations. I was subjected to discriminatory protocols, insulted, dismissed, and told I was unwelcome. In the bank I have led for 3 years. FBI agents fanned out, serving warrants. One approached Jennifer. Ma'am, we're executing a federal warrant to examine all customer service records from the past 18 months. You'll need to come with us for questioning. Jennifer couldn't speak. 18 months, federal warrant, criminal investigation. Brianna continued. For those who participated in discriminatory practices, you will face consequences. But for those who tried to speak up, her eyes found Maya Rodriguez. You will be protected and heard. Chairman Ashford stepped forward. Effective immediately, Jennifer Whitmore, Derek Morrison, and William Carter are suspended. Sarah Thompson and 6 others are on administrative leave. If evidence confirms systemic discrimination, terminations will follow. If criminal conduct is proven, we will pursue maximum penalties. An FBI agent touched Jennifer's elbow. Ms. Whitmore, we need you downtown for questioning. I've been here 16 years, Jennifer's voice cracked. You have the right to legal counsel. I strongly suggest you exercise it. Brianna appeared before Jennifer. You asked me yesterday who I was. I'm the person who's been trying to fix this bank for 3 years. Yesterday you showed me some systems can't be reformed. They have to be dismantled. You trapped me, Jennifer whispered. I gave you every opportunity to treat me like a human being. You chose differently, on camera. That wasn't a trap. That was your choice. Jennifer was led away, Derek and William following, all surrounded by federal agents. The branch was being dissected, laptops seized, files boxed, evidence processed. Maya approached Brianna hesitantly. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. You spoke up when it mattered most, Brianna said. I'm creating an independent customer advocacy department. Someone needs to run it. Someone who understands what it feels like to watch injustice happen. Interested? Maya nodded, unable to speak. The security camera's red light still blinked. Everything had been recorded. The evidence was irrefutable. The news broke within hours. Video footage from customer phones flooded social media. Jennifer's dismissal, the FBI arrival, Brianna's revelation. The hashtag Banking While Black trended nationally, reaching 15 million views by sunset. The FBI had been investigating Ashford and Sterling for 18 months, building a case on pattern analysis and whistleblower reports. Brianna's undercover visit provided the final piece, irrefutable evidence captured in real time. Jennifer Whitmore faced 8 federal charges: civil rights violations, conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of banking access, discriminatory lending practices. The evidence was overwhelming. Emails coordinating efforts to flag Black and Latino customers for enhanced scrutiny. Internal memos about maintaining clientele standards without mentioning race. Loan applications marked with codes triggering automatic denials based on minority zip codes. Her lawyer tried to negotiate, claiming institutional culture, not personal intent, but the recordings were clear. Someone like you. Diversity candidates, typical profile. Every euphemism exposed. The sentence, 8 years in federal prison, no parole eligibility for 4 years. Derek Morrison received 5 years. William Carter received 3 years and permanent prohibition from financial services. Sarah Thompson and 6 others were terminated immediately, their professional licenses flagged forever. Dismissed for discriminatory practices. Ashford and Sterling issued a genuine public apology. Brianna had written sections herself. The bank compensated 127 customers who'd been inappropriately denied service over 18 months. Total restitution, $4.2 million. But money wasn't the point. Every employee underwent mandatory bias retraining. Camera systems were upgraded with AI monitoring to flag service disparities. Maya Rodriguez was promoted to lead the new independent ombudsman office. Other banks launched panicked internal audits. Regulators investigated complaints previously dismissed as isolated incidents. The entire industry trembled. In viral courtroom footage, Jennifer tried one final defense. I never intended to discriminate. I was protecting the bank's interests. The judge cut her off. Ms. Whitmore, you weaponized your position to humiliate someone based on skin color. That wasn't training. That was choice. And choices have consequences. As marshals led Jennifer away, cameras captured her complete dissolution. Derek Morrison wept. William Carter stared ahead, expressionless. The footage played on every network. Brianna appeared on one morning show. This wasn't revenge, it was accountability. Systems don't change because we ask nicely. They change because we make them too expensive to ignore. Maya Rodriguez testified before a Senate subcommittee. I was 23, terrified of losing my job. But Ms. Mercer showed me that staying silent isn't neutrality. It's complicity. I'll never be silent again. Her words became a rallying cry. Young employees across industries started speaking up. Jennifer Whitmore began serving her sentence in Pennsylvania, Derek in Ohio, William in Virginia. Their mugshots preserved forever, searchable warnings that following orders was no longer an acceptable defense. Across the country, people were having conversations they'd avoided for years, about who got benefit of the doubt, about whose money was assumed dirty, about what standards really meant. The collapse wasn't just of 3 careers. It was of a comfortable lie. That discrimination required hatred instead of indifference, that good people couldn't do terrible things, that systems were neutral because they claimed to be. Brianna had pulled down the curtain. There was no putting it back up. 1 week after the sentencing, Brianna called an all-staff meeting at Ashford Sterling headquarters. Every employee gathered in the main auditorium, tense and uncertain. Brianna stood at the podium without notes. I didn't go undercover to trap anyone. I did it because anonymous reports aren't enough. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes, and it was more painful than I'd imagined. She looked across the crowd, some ashamed, others relieved, a few defensive. I've led this bank for 3 years. I've read every diversity report, every complaint. I knew there was a problem, but knowing intellectually and feeling it are different. When Jennifer Whitmore looked at me like I was nobody, like my degree meant nothing, like my money must be dirty, that's when I understood. This wasn't just bad policy, it was spiritual violence. Maya Rodriguez, in the front row, wiped her eyes. Power doesn't mean anything if it only protects the powerful. I could have walked in with my title and demanded respect, but that wouldn't have changed anything for the next person without my advantages. The next Maya. The next customer who needed banking services but got suspicion instead. She looked at Maya. This young woman risked everything to tell the truth. She was 23, an intern with no security, and she spoke up anyway. That's not just courage. That's moral clarity. That's what we're building around now. Brianna shifted focus. We're not fixing this with one termination. We're fixing it by changing who we are. Every system gets reviewed by teams including people who've experienced discrimination firsthand. An executive raised his hand. How do we know what's expected? Brianna smiled. You treat every customer like they're important, like their business matters, like they deserve respect. It's not complicated. It's just hard because it requires examining our assumptions. She stepped back, then added, every customer who walks through our doors is trusting us with their money, their dreams, their future. We don't get to decide who deserves that trust based on what they look like. We earn it by being worthy of it. Every single time. The applause started slowly, then built. Maya stood first, tears streaming. Then others joined. Not everyone. Some sat with arms crossed. But enough stood that the message was clear. Change was possible. After the meeting, Maya approached Brianna. Thank you for believing me. Brianna shook her head. You protected yourself. You found your voice when it mattered most. I just made sure people listened. She paused. That's the real work now, making sure every voice gets heard. Not just when it's convenient. Always. They walked toward the exit, passing portraits of past presidents, all white, all male, all from an era that believed exclusion was good business. Soon, Brianna's portrait would join them. The first black woman CEO who'd dismantled her own institution to rebuild it right. But she wasn't thinking about legacy. She was thinking about tomorrow. About the next customer expecting dismissal, instead finding dignity. That's what justice looked like. Not revenge, not headlines, just people being treated like people. Every single time. 3 months later, Brianna sat in her office reviewing the quarterly reports. Customer satisfaction scores had climbed 23%. Employee retention was up. More importantly, complaint patterns had shifted. Instead of silence, people were speaking up, trusting the new systems to actually respond. But the work wasn't finished. It would never be finished. That was the point. Brianna opened her laptop and recorded a video message, not for employees, but for everyone watching this story unfold across social media, news channels, and dinner table conversations. If you're watching this, maybe you've experienced something similar, she began, looking directly into the camera. Maybe you've been dismissed at a bank, a hospital, a store, anywhere someone decided you didn't belong based on how you looked. Maybe you stayed quiet because you didn't think anyone would believe you, or because you needed that job, that loan, that service too badly to risk making waves. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I want you to know something. Your experience was real. The discrimination you felt wasn't in your head. And you have more power than you think. Document it. Record it if you can, legally and safely. Report it through official channels. Share your story. Because systems only change when we stop letting them operate in darkness. Brianna leaned forward slightly, her voice gaining intensity. Every time someone stays silent, the system wins. Every time someone speaks up, even when they're scared, even when they're not sure anyone will listen, the system cracks a little. Enough cracks, and the whole thing comes down. That's not theory. That's what happened here. One anonymous report, one intern finding her courage, one CEO willing to see the truth. That's all it took to dismantle 16 years of institutional discrimination. She smiled, but it was serious, purposeful. And to everyone who holds power, in banks, in hospitals, in any institution, remember this. You never know who's standing in front of you. The person you dismiss today might be the person who determines your future tomorrow. But that's not really the point, is it? The point is that everyone deserves dignity, not because of what they might secretly be, but because they're human. Because dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you're owed. Brianna glanced at a photo on her desk. Maya accepting an award at a banking industry conference for her advocacy work. The young woman who'd been terrified to speak up was now traveling the country training other banks on inclusive practices. Change doesn't happen because we ask nicely, Brianna continued. It happens because we make the cost of discrimination higher than the cost of doing what's right. It happens because we refuse to be silent, because we document, because we testify, because we build systems that protect whistleblowers instead of punishing them. She sat back, her tone softening slightly. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. Speaking up can cost you. It cost Maya her sense of security. It could have cost her career. But silence costs more. It costs dignity. It costs justice. It costs the future we're trying to build for everyone who comes after us. Brianna looked directly into the camera one final time. So here's what I'm asking. The next time you see something wrong, say something. The next time someone treats another human being as less than, don't look away. Use your phone. Use your voice. Use whatever power you have, even if you think it's not much. Because change doesn't start with people like me in corner offices. It starts with people like Maya, risking everything to tell the truth. She paused, then delivered her final words with quiet conviction. Dignity can't be bought. Justice can't be negotiated. And change starts with each of us every single day, choosing what kind of world we want to build. Choose wisely, choose bravely. Because the person you help today might be yourself tomorrow. Brianna closed the laptop and looked out her window at the New York skyline. Somewhere out there, someone was being dismissed right now. Someone was being told they didn't belong. But maybe, just maybe, they'd see this story and realize they weren't alone. That justice was possible, that the system could break. She picked up her phone and typed one final message to Maya. How many banks have requested training this month? The response came immediately. 47. We're going to need a bigger team. Brianna smiled. 47 banks that would rather change than become the next headline. 47 institutions where Maya's courage would ripple outward, protecting people who'd never know her name. That was legacy. Not portraits on walls, but systems that protected dignity. Not revenge, but accountability. Not one victory, but the beginning of a movement that refused to stop. The light had come in, and it wasn't going back out.